Right, now
And we're live.
Now we're recording. This is the real recording. Right,
Good.
for the listeners, we had a little technical difficulty on that last recording. I forgot to click record. Thankfully, we didn't get into anything, so that's great.
You telling them that we've had technical difficulties without them actually knowing we've had.
Well, the thing is, I'd like to keep an audit track of record for every technical hiccup, because at least then we can keep fresh in our minds. Yeah, that's fine. How is both your weekends? Let's get straight into it. Obviously, both of you were in Dortmund, but anything else? Anything other than that? We're going to get into it. So
I mean, it was an in and out job for both of us. We both left Friday afternoon, came back Sunday evening, so it was literally just tournaments. We've been to the venue before. I know, Alex, you managed to watch a football match before because it's literally right on the doorstep of the Dortmund football stadium. But this time we flew in during the game, unfortunately, on the Friday. But yeah, I mean, the venue I didn't personally love. I think they really crammed us in there. The tables were really, really tight, maybe because I was playing an Area 0 deck, but it made life a little bit trickier.
Is it the same venue as last time?
Yeah, same venue.
It is.
The chairs were unbelievably uncomfortable.
Oh, did you see the guy break his chair?
No, I didn't see that. But it
Oh
doesn't
my
surprise
God,
me if
it was-
someone
Chairs
was
always
like-
break. Chairs always
It was
break.
complete. It was just behind like where my opponent was, so I was facing it, and all I just hear is this snap, crackle, and pop, and it just disintegrates beneath.
It depends what type of chair break, because I've seen them where they just go flying back, or I've seen them where they kind of just crumble down. Or which type one was it?
Yeah, he literally folded. Like it was so bad. I felt so bad for that player.
Yeah,
But
so
it was
that-
like it
that
was
wasn't great.
it was an ongoing complaint, right, about those chairs, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And yeah, it just didn't seem spacious enough. Just between rounds, it was just herds of people. So maybe that's something we just have to get more used to with the size of tournaments, but it didn't feel amazing. But I mean, the location is convenient, I suppose. You know, there's lots of like hotels around and it's easy to travel to. So I get why that's the venue they picked, but I would like to see something done in future about that. But me and Alex both decided to play Palkia decks, slightly different decks, but at the core still Palkia Noctowl. It's basically the thing that I've been testing the whole time, and I really wanted to not fall into the trap that I usually fall into, which is just play a little bit of something here, play a little bit of something there, and then suddenly it's a week before the tournament and I'm like okay and competent enough with a bunch of decks, but not very good at any individual deck. Because I think that's the trap I fell into last season, where I didn't day to a single regional. I played in 3 and did trash in all of them. So I really wanted to.
Where you insert joke, Ben, that he's he's still not an expert of any deck.
I dated an IC, but no regionals. Yeah.
I was talking about this run, but anyway, I moved them.
Because I always thought as soon as Area 0 come back, just back on that. As soon as that card got announced, I thought what an administrative nightmare it's going to be to hold boards and like you're all kind of like squished in, but even more so with these massive board states now.
Yeah, I mean, when mats are overlapping each other, it sort of
It's
tells
worse,
you the
yeah.
sort of situation it is. And obviously, I'm a bigger bloke, so whenever you sit next to someone who's also a big, broad bloke, it's tough, and that happened a few times to me. Honestly, the biggest relief was when someone got donked or something and their round finished early, so you could actually spread out on one of the sides. But yeah, so I locked into Palkia early just because I loved Fan Rotom and Noctowl. They're obviously cracked cards. We'll see that in the results as well in other archetypes, although Palkia still did fine, obviously in the Champions League as well, which gave me even more confidence in the list. So yeah, that's kind of what I locked onto early. Don't know if you want to... Should we go into the tournament, or do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, I better introduce the show. So, everybody, welcome to the SpilltheTeaCG podcast. My name is Benjamin. I'm here with my co-casters, co-mates, Alex Dow, Joe, Bernard, of course, as we all know and love them. Of course, coming into this weekend, I wasn't going to Dortmund. I wasn't going to be playing. Or unfortunately, I was going to be commentating the event. I was going to be sitting at home with my pregnant partner.
You're on baby watch.
I'm on baby watch. It's it's kind of like a panda watch.
Does it feel real yet?
It's just
Is it
yeah.
us just watching Mood.
I mean, I'm going to be like, I think I'm going to be one of those people who just realise that it's happening when it actually happens, and then go, oh, yeah, now it's real kind of thing. Like I still think I've got a month off coming up, So I'm thinking about like what games I'm going to play. I'm going to thinking of, what am I going to be doing with my month off, TCG Shop Simulator just come out. Really enjoying that. So I'm hoping...
I've seen some great people streaming that. Shintaro is streaming that right now. On
I did
YouTube.
see him. I did see him stream it. Yeah. I've been really enjoying it. So with my month off, I'm going to be playing that all the time. So that's good.
Too right, and you deserve it, Benjamin. All that hard work you've put in.
Exactly. But you two had the privilege of going into Dortmund to play. Going into the first regional in Europe, which was really exciting. So I know, Joe, you just touched upon your experience over the weekend, going in with Palkia, and of course, going in with a bit of confidence. But how was your experience going into the actual tournament of play?
Yeah, so a few differences, I suppose, because the structure is now 8 rounds day 1 as opposed to the usual 9. We're looking for better records, 6-2, and ties being worse. You can still 5-0-3 and make it to day 2. But I definitely had the intention of, when going into Game 3 situations, saying, or asking if they'd like a gents. And I did that in one of my rounds and did end up scooping to my opponent because they were ahead on prizes. That was one of my losses. It was against a Roaring Moon EX and Baby Moon list, which is quite a tricky one, but I won the first game pretty comfortably, and then I got them down to one prize. Oh, sorry, they got down to one prize. I was able to KO Fez and Iono on the same turn, so they had one card hand, then Top Deck Sada, which wasn't a problem, but then the 3 cards got them into Patch plus Vessel for their last energy in deck, so they could Petrant EX KO a Palk. And then we had 4 minutes left, because... the deck still takes a while to play because they weave in single prizes and stuff, right? It's still trying to be a bit of both. And I lost to gents there. My other losses were I went 5-3 on the day, so I didn't make day 2. My other losses were to a Reggie Drago in round 2, to Yuan, who does really well in the tournament eventually. A really strong French player who didn't really put a foot wrong. But in game 1, I got to win the flip, and I think when Palkia wins the flip, it's like Terrapagos Dustermire in that they're just 2 of the most dangerous decks in format because of Noctowl. But I prized 2 of my Noctowls, and I do my Fan Rotom and get my 1 Noctowl to hand, and it gets Iono to the bottom on his turn 1. So then my hand is pretty poor, and I have this choice of going all in with a Palkia to take the first 2 prize cards with a Prime Catcher because they went Cleffa. And I chose not to go for the play because they already had Tina V-Star in the bin and could KO my only Palkia, which meant that my only response play would be to Trumpet Terrapagos, and I'd have to find Gust on again, and I would be spending Prime Catcher on that turn to take the first 2. So I thought that was basically impossible, especially because I'd be spending my only Noctowl to make the play happen. So I chose to take a defensive play with the barrel, drew 5 cards, which could still give me a really good chance, or a decent chance of still doing something strong that turn. If I draw, I shuffle the deck so I could draw back into Noctowl or any Ultra Ball. But I completely miss. I literally draw 4 supporters when I play 7 in the deck, which is terrible. And then a Trumpet, which wasn't live. So I just had to pass and then fell very far behind in that matchup. I think I made a couple other errors after that, but that was the crucial turn where I could feel the exchange of me being ahead and on top of things. And then it spiraled out of control from there because they went Kiram, and then my Hoots were gone, and then I'm completely limited into what I can do anyway. So... and then the second game, I just bricked against them entirely. It was I could Fan Rotom, but no access to a Terra, so the deck just does nothing. And it's rare for the list to do that because he plays so many outs, but it just can happen. That's part of the engine, right? It requires a Terra to do anything. And then my other loss was to Palkia Dustermire, which was really close, and it always came down to them blowing up an engine poke or gusting up an engine poke and Ionoing, and then do I have it? And most situations I should have had it and then just didn't on the turn. So again, I had priority to win. Yes, they put me down to a low hand size, but I still had pieces of engines. Sometimes I had Fez, sometimes I had the barrel. One of the games I had them both in play and still whiffed. So some pretty unfortunate situations for me. It just wasn't my day ultimately. But I did make that big mistake. Well, I don't know. I still think it was justified what I did against the Drago, but I could have just taken tempo, said that I'm going to hit a Noctowl off my 2 prizes, and then just stay ahead. Incidentally, I didn't hit Noctowl from the 2 prizes that I eventually took, so I could say that it was right on the balance of things. But what Alex likes to preach is that if you're asking the questions of the opponent, sometimes they miss their turn anyway. They don't always get it themselves, and just asking the questions is probably the right thing to do. But yeah, those are my losses, and I still really like the deck. And I was able to beat like still a decent number of decks. I beat the 2 evolving decks, which is one of the best things about Palkia. You're very good into the Guardian, the Dragapult that I beat, and then I also beat Lugia, which is a tough matchup, but I didn't draw great because it's Lugia. I beat a Gouging Fire and I beat a Raging Bolt, which is one of the best matchups as well, provided you just don't lead a 2-prizer, because you can so easily turn the board into a 2-prize board state after they take 1 prize, and you can burst onto the board with Trumpet. So there's complexity to the deck. I love Noctowl still. I love Fan Rotom still. I think everyone agrees with that now, especially with Terapagos being so high profile. Everyone's going to explore those cards more and just see how busted those are. But yeah, Palkia was a fun experience. I don't regret it. I mean, I'm not going for an invite this year, really. So just with the amount of events I'll actually be playing. So just picking decks that I think are good and fun is going to be my priority. And I think I ticked both boxes with that. So pretty happy with the run, even though it was a little bit awkward for me on the day.
Out of interest, do you generally still do tournament reports, Joe, on OmniPoke?
I did at the end, so I did my meta-analysis yesterday, and then at the end of the video I did it, so very few people will have watched to actually hear it. So.
Yeah, because obviously there's a lot of people that still do their tournament reports, but I never really remember if you still do or not, because obviously I know you spend a lot of time just analysing a lot of the data instead.
Yeah.
But it's always kind of interesting to hear. I mean, obviously I was there with you, but...
Yeah. It was good to see that a lot of people put their trust into the Noctowl engine, because as we've been speaking about on the podcast, it is so much fun playing, and of course you saw high profile players taking the archetype into the tournament, which was great to see. Maybe it may not have been Palkia, but it would have been maybe just the Dust Noir with the Pidgeot build as well, which is just so consistent. You have so many options to draw. You have your draw sport as well as your kind of a search engine going on, which is I mean, you can't really beat it, can you?
To be honest, I wish I had put more time into that archetype. My early Terapagos list was so far away from Pidgeot Dust Noir that I was kind of like misguided in how to play the deck. So I was kind of late on the Dust Noir Pidgeot genius and how good it actually is. Because it does feel like disgusting going first with that deck. Yeah. The more that I've played it. It needs less than Palkia going first as well, which is a nice feeling.
It has so much to it, right? I mean, you got Noctowl and Pidgeot, and there's not really much more that needs to be said other than that, really. And then, of course, you got Terapagos and Briar, Dust Noir. You can do a lot of funky plays with it, which is great. But Dow, you had a lot more of a fortunate run in Dortmund. You managed to make day 2. I've actually got your list, and Joe, I'll show you your list in a minute. I actually forgot.
Nah, don't worry about it. Show Dow's list.
Yeah, I've got Dow's list here. So
I'm sure some of our friends will say that I played the wrong list and should have been playing the list that Dow played.
Really?
We spent so long trying to get Joe to up some of those numbers.
Look how smug he is. My list is so much simpler.
Do you want to take us?
I'm going to use that term. I'm pretty sure.
Do you want to take us through the discussion around those changes? Then
I'd very quickly touch on like Uncommon Energy. Very quickly listening to Azul and Chip, they quickly scrolled to like, oh yeah, Joe and Alex played a very funky Palkia list with the green stuff, and then right at the end you've just got Azul. I'm going to use the word sniggered at the 4 Fan Rotom, and obviously it's very different compared to a lot of other people. But yeah, that was one of the main differences, I guess, with our lists. Obviously, I then played a lot of additional combo cards. The 4 Fan Rotom, I've already kind of tweeted about it. It's kind of people started looking at it for the wrong reasons, but simply you just want to start it. Don't waste any ball search on it so that you can actually then go into your combo pieces, like into the 4/4 Noctowl line that we play, and then you can use all of those additional ball searches for those combo pieces that we need, like for the Palkia V-Stars, for the Fortons, for the Crispins, for all these different ideas that we can try and do. The deck was, as Joe put it, the most complex and complicated deck, but it was so much fun to play. Trying to work out every angle that you can, particularly with the version that I played, was like so much fun, but so kind of stressing at the same time, or stressful at the same time. But generally, every card sort of pulled its weight. So like Crispin plays into multiple turns where you're just needing to maybe just double attach energy to an active Terapagos that got stuck active, for example, or if you want to turn free Greninja for the second time back to back, You can make those kind of plays, which are really, really cool, and no one tends to see it at all.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the aim of the deck. The deck itself kind of hides a lot of its pieces quite well because it utilizes those Noctowl Jewel Seeker ability. And that's when most players don't really know what's going on game one. And I'll spend maybe 5 to 7 minutes on turn 2. And that's me drawing a hell of a lot of cards, comboing a lot of pieces out, and then just seeing where those draws get me, and then choosing the last line of essentially an offense of me taking prizes.
It definitely seems like a play-by-play deck, right? You've got so many options that you have in this deck, offensively or on the defense. You got Thornton, Crispin, Irida, the prime catchers, the glass trumpets. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it seems like you're doing something completely different each turn. It's not like a one size fits all. You're not like penny looping, for example, or you're not finding Sada each turn, or you're not trying to find Dark Patch to upkeep your attacks. You're doing something so completely different. You're like you have the option. Of course, Noctowl gives you the option to do that, right? So
yeah, it's so not linear, which is why it was so fun. And obviously full credit to Luke Burke, because he kind of put us back on this bandwagon as a bit of a backup deck to something else we were trying out as well. And then as we played it more and more, sort of worked out and ironed out some more numbers of the actual card counts and so on. And this is the list we ended up on. So we both played the same 60. I think he had a couple of unfortunate matchups, and I just ended up having sort of the better ones. I can quickly go through.
Yeah.
I'll highlight sort of the funner matchups, I guess. I did have a few matchups against sort of evolution decks. So I played 3 Charizards, 1 Gardevoir, beat the Gardevoir and went 2-1 against Charizard. I think the third Charizard I just kind of drew a little bit worse than I needed to. And I ended up getting unfair stamped like so much earlier than I expected, despite taking out like a Pidgey, for example, the always lone Pidgey that you had available. So those games kind of generally go a very one direction with a Greninja sort of very early on, especially if I get a chance to go first as well. You can tend to see what your opponent's playing by the setup Pokemon that they play. And that kind of highlights a lot of things. You see a Rotom, they're very likely to be playing a stage 2 deck, for example. So you can get a Palkia down quite early, or if you don't, then you can always find a way to bin it, Thornton into it, Palkia, V-Star, Greninja, and Moonlight Shuriken for 2 prizes. Played a couple of Raging Bolt on day 1 as well. Again, as Joe said, pretty simple matchup. As long as you don't lead a 2-prizer, you build a one prize board state, and you can start swinging with Terapagos, or even the Iron Leaves onto.
But you got like Thornton too, don't forget.
Or Thornton into the Palkia. So yeah, there's a lot of more options compared to Joe, but those are the sort of angles you go for. I guess I did have a really cool, fun matchup against one of the Charizards because I hit it so well in terms of what I was able to do. My opponent did see me Vessel away at Palkia turn 1, and I went first, and they were like very confused for a little bit. Kind of ignored it, and I ended up getting the Thornton play into a Greninja for 2 prizes turn 2, into turn 3, where they were like, well, you can't do it again, surely.
Well, I can.
And then I went straight into Noctowl, into Crispin, and went, yeah, that's a further 2 Charmanders gone. But really cool, and they were like, okay, go to game 2, and then game 2, they hadn't even seen the Iron Leaves yet, and then I went straight into that with their lone Charizard that they built up quite quickly, and then they were like, so that's in there too, is it? Are you playing any lightning energy? I think
that's the thing. Like Iron Leaves is hidden because Terapagos also attacks for grass. I also had people freaking out when I attached a water and a grass to Terapagos because they expect a lightning possibly in there as well. So even Leaves is kind of hidden, even if you show grass. That's what's really cool. Yeah.
So I mean, my day 1 couldn't really have gone much better. I naturally fret quite early on. I mean, I tied my first round, so I was always kind of a bit on a back foot, but got to a stage where I think I was 5-0-1, and I was like, then I lost, and my enthusiasm, my optimism gets shot down very quickly, as Joe very much knows. So both of you know very much as well. But then the last round, I had a pretty good matchup, and yeah, put myself at 6-1-1 going into day 2. So that again, super nice to actually be able to put time into a deck and actually do well with it. I think Luke went 5-3 5-3-1, 5-2-1 as well. So it wasn't as if he had a completely shot tournament as well.
A couple people did flop with the list as well, to be fair, but they may not have played it for as long or has been as dedicated. I think they were like between other decks and landed on Palkia in the end, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people look to Luke for a lot of guidance and advice. I mean, I've known Luke for a long time now, so he's definitely built up 1 or 2 decks for me in the past. So I have a lot of faith in his direction. But yeah, and then day 2, obviously, then it's this new format, new structure. It's only 4 rounds, so you're even more pressured to just kind of go all gung ho, and I'd have to essentially win all 4 rounds. And round 1, I immediately get paired to what's probably my worst matchup in Miraidon and our good friend Bolly. I tried to set up a really cool play on game 1, and I felt like I pretty much almost checkmated the guy. So he ends up taking 4 prizes quite fairly quickly, so maybe turns 3, turn 4. But he had a full board as well. He plays the Terra Mewtwo, which has a 2 retreat cost. So I've took 2 prizes to obviously try and match and keep pace, but then I've been setting up my board state to effectively Star Portal to a Greninja, Prime Catcher a Terror up, Iono to 1 or 2, whatever it was, and just play on the fact that he maybe has 2 switch cards. He's played 1 already. He's played 2 out of his 4 Arvens. He has a DTE somewhere, maybe. A fairly thick deck, but it wasn't really enough. So I was playing out to double Greninja 2 turns on a Mew and a Squawk. But yeah, we unfortunately have to take one of those. I probably could have stalled him in game 3, and maybe that might have pushed me in the top 64. But to give him a chance to actually try and make it, although he flopped it as well, damn you, Bolly. I ended up giving him the best opportunity for him to take the final prizes to win game 3. So I've done my best in that.
I haven't seen Bolly's list yet, but I'm hoping he went back to Energy Sticker in Miraidon.
I definitely did not see any Energy Sticker.
Did he roll it back? No. Oh, that's a shame.
That would have been quite fun. But other than that, yeah, it was. I went 2-2 in the end in day 2. Had a bit of a very, very awkward, strange final round where I probably got a bit more heated just because I felt there was some hypocritical comments during the game.
I can't believe you get heated. I've never seen you heated ever.
Yeah, it wasn't a good look, and obviously I probably should apologize to my opponent and the judges that were there for getting heated, but I didn't feel like I was in the wrong in my position. It doesn't matter. I won that game. It didn't even put me into top 6.
So they have that.
We could have just
right.
Yeah.
Can you sign the slip?
We could have just ID'd for top 128 for both of us, and it would have been the same. But no, like I said, it was a deck that I really, really enjoyed. I think there's a lot of thought that needs to go into it. It wouldn't surprise me if no one picks up that kind of list and just sort of runs with it, because there's so many maybe slightly more straightforward types of build with Noctowls and so on.
I mean, mine's a smaller brain list.
Yeah,
sure,
but at the same time, I mean, like I said to you during the tournament, if we chuck in 1 Thornton into your list, I feel like that almost changes the way it's played
every
to
turn 1 and 2 that I play out. Yeah.
And again, just opens up some more doors. But again, depends where you find that consistency. But I can see myself playing it again, or at least a version of it for Lil as well.
I'll probably still jam it at cups as well. I'll either play that or Terrapagos Dusk.
Yeah,
I'm a huge believer in Noctowl. It's just too good.
I was about to say, it'll be interesting to see where the kind of story of Terrapagos goes, whether people will stick with the Duskmart or whether they'll, sometimes be more subverted to the Palkia build. Or do they see Palkia without Terrapagos and just with the Duskmart, So,
another good option. That deck felt really difficult to play against, actually. They put you in really weird spots all the time.
Well, that's the name of the game for them, right? It's they can map a lot of different plays, and I think that's what the
it just has so many. It just plays around the engines really well. That's what I always found, because you can Dusknoir and Greninja KO Fezzes and stuff like that. You can do really cool stuff with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Generally the tournament, fantastic opponents, by the way. I had a really good fun time, which I haven't had for quite a while, I think.
Yeah, that's good. I think one thing before we get into the meta of Dortmund, just following on from that conversation around the two different Terrapagos builds, or what's seen as the two most popular one. Both of you played the same archetype. So pretend I'm somebody who is choosing a deck for, say, the weekend, like a League Cup. Why would I play Palkia Terrapagos over any other deck?
You just have it's just an options box, really. You have so much modality with Noctowl that you can do basically anything you want to, and I think comparing it to Terrapagos Dusknoir, Palkia has the strong, especially with the grass package, Palkia has the better time into Charizard. You actually boast a good Charizard, whereas Terrapagos Dusknoir, I think going second into Zard, not that favourable. And like if you play Boofs, the deck does feel clunkier. I've already just cut the Boofs to have just higher counts of other cards, to be honest with you, with Terrapagos. But both decks feel disgusting going first. But I thought going into Dortmund, it would be easier for us to go first in more matches. I think everyone wants to go first now, apart from Bolt. So that's a small development.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think just one of the things I really enjoy about Palkia is just you can hit some absurd numbers. With the new stadium, of course. It's obviously one of those Pokemon that gets to benefit from that, alongside all the Rondo attackers. And I feel like because it's a Palkia that's able to do big damage like that, it's just got this natural draw of like, well, you're not just having to combo a Dusknoir to eventually reach the numbers that you need to. You just kind of have it as a threat on board whenever you want, and then you can kind of just cherry pick your routes to victory with the Noctowls. Noctowl is insanely fun to play, and I didn't expect that to be the case at all.
Oh, it's so good. Also, you don't rely on 60 hit point Pokemon like Duskull and Pidgey, so going second into Dragapults and Regidragos doesn't feel quite as bad as well. That's a small thing.
Quite as difficult, yeah. So the answer is fun, basically.
It's so fun. We had so much fun at the weekend.
Pokemon is fun. Yeah. I love this game.
Good.
I mean, you dip into your deck like 6 times a turn. It's crazy. Your turn 2 is wild.
No, I think I spent a lot of time apologizing how long my turn took, but then they realized like how many actions and combo pieces I'm putting together, and they're like, "Yeah, I can see why." Yeah. But goddamn.
But also, you go in and then you draw 2 a Greninja before you use your next one because you have to see what you draw from those 2, and same for Fairs and stuff like that. So there's a lot of choice going on.
No,
and yours was way more chaotic than mine. Mine was basic stuff, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I think going on from what I said earlier about how each turn is completely different, I'm thinking about when my opponent's playing their turn, and I'm just thinking, right, what on earth am I doing this next turn?
The worst thing is if they flip over
am I going for?
Like a Radiant Greninja, and then you're like, what board am I meant to build?
Yeah.
I don't really know.
I think that's the only time between mine and Joe's board. If you have no idea what you're facing up against, you just still go to single prize. We have a single prize board. Joe has to go into Terrapagos to get a big attacker off, which I guess is one of the small downfalls. But again, you then have a bit more of an easier time of pulling off your attacks, I guess.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, and I guess that's the advantage that the Terrapagos Dusknoir line has, right? Because their board state's always going to be single prizes, unless of course they start Terrapagos, they can go for that option. So that's a benefit that they'll have. I think it's interesting about the Palkia hitting absurd numbers, like you said. I think now, and I can't believe I'm going to mention rotation. I know rotation is quite far away, but Palkia now is obviously that obvious card that you look at when you look at it beside your Area Zero and you go, these two were not supposed to be released at the same time. And we're approaching that stage now where you'll see a lot more of these wacky combos coming out as each set releases. You'll just think and remember of a card that was released maybe a year and a half ago. Oh, hang on a minute, is Glamora back? What is it tier 1 again? Okay, so let's go into the day 1 meta. I'm hoping both of you have got it in front of you, otherwise I won't be able to share it. But I'm going to be just showing our viewers the day 1 meta. So Raging Bolt will be our first place most represented deck with 17%, sharing that same figure with Charizard EX. However, only 14 more decks represented, that's why it's number 1. Dragapult EX then coming in at 3rd, with Regidrago at 4th with 8%. Lugia following that in 5th with 6%, and then Gardevoir EX being our 6th most represented deck of day one. Before we go into the other decks, do you think that this was well represented in your experiences? Did you see some of these decks a lot more often than others? Or did you see some of these decks a lot, teetering a bit towards the bottom tables than the top ones? How are your experiences?
I mean, I wish I saw Zard. I didn't see any Zards, and I teched pretty heavily for it, and I only hit one Bolt. I think we all expected those to be the top 2 decks. We just didn't know by how much, and it seemed like it was like kind of defaulted to more than I expected, possibly, with 17% for each of them. But obviously my day was weird. Like I started round 1 against a Gouging Fire, so my day was weird.
That's fair enough.
But yeah, I'm a little surprised Terrapagos didn't make day 1 graphic, and that Guardy did. To be fair,
I was surprised at that, but also I was just a little taken back by the amount of trust people had in Dragapult EX. Straight
that was a
off the
big
bat.
question mark for me as well. I didn't
over
know
Regidrago.
where people would land on it. Yeah, over Regidrago as well, that seemed like such an easy pick when it was like good into Zard and was the best deck in the previous format. That's a pretty big fall off for a deck that didn't really like gain a bad matchup per se.
Yeah.
I kind of feel it's one of those decks which is maybe just shifted, instead of having maybe very, very slightly favourable matchups against a lot of things. It's kind of just shifted more to 50-50, or maybe kind of still at 45-55 in your opponent's favour now. I hit every one of those that you've kind of mentioned, apart from Lugia on day 1. So I hit the expected meta, I guess. And that's generally good. I mean, I don't think there's really a bad matchup there. If you go first into Drago, as Joe said, you're generally in a good spot. Evolution decks generally should be okay if you can get your combos off. Dragapult was a bit of a weird one for me in round 1. But it is what it is. And then, as I said, Raging Bolt's nice and generally free if you start the right thing. So yeah, pretty expected, exactly what I saw for day 1 myself, personally.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think going back to Dragapult, I was surprised that the amount of people putting trust in it to that extent, because it only gained really 2 cards, right? It only really gained Crispin and Sparkling Crystal. Really, that's the only thing that is new going into that archetype. So people put a lot of trust in it, and there's not a lot of, I would say, evolution decks, maybe apart from Charizard, of course, that are in that top graphic, which is primarily what I would play Dragapult for. So
Charizard is the most popular deck, right? Combined with Bolt. So, like, from that perspective, it makes sense. And I think Crystal is such an obvious upgrade to Neo Upper. Like, that was always the big problem with the deck. You couldn't attack on turn 2 unless you had the insane hand where you can actually quick search for Neo. Now you can actually expect to attack on turn 2, I feel like. And that is a huge dial shift, I think, for Bolt.
But then I saw, obviously, how well Dragapult was doing in the tournament. And then, of course, the plays that people were putting off, taking 4 prize or maybe even 5 prize turns. I thought, okay, people have cracked how to play this effectively. So yeah, maybe that was the case. Going into the rest of day 1, then the best of the rest, as they like to call it on the graphic, we have then Terrapagos EX Dusknoir with 5%, Roaring Moon 4%, Control. It says Snorlax Control, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be different variances of Control. Maybe not Pidgeot, but Cornerstone Ogerpon builds, etc., etc. At 3%.
Do you think?
I would have thought so. I know.
I think it had to have Snorlax in it.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah. I think it would have to have Snorlax in it.
Snorlax Control, then 3%. Miraidon EX, then at 3% as well. Unclassified 2, and then Ancient Box at 2% as well. With 40 decks.
I mean, we trashed Ancient Box.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We did.
So surprised that he even made the graphic. I guess it's kind of with the numbers of being pushed up by Unclassified and so on.
You were surprised he made the graphic at all?
There were none in day 2, to be fair. So.
There were none in day 2. And day 2 was pretty funky, actually.
There was also none in Joinville, so
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It should
Yeah.
not be played, I don't think.
So
And
so
that says it all.
Terrapagos Palkia would have been unclassified then, technically.
No, it would have been
No.
sub 2%.
Yeah, so I found out from Shay because I was
Oh,
kind
it
of
would've been so-
interested
okay.
what it would have appeared as, but
Mhm.
our decks would have appeared as Terrapagos Noctowl.
Yeah.
Right.
So for reference, these graphics are taken from Arcanine data, right? So like when
Yeah.
Judge view, they have lists. They can see what people's lists are and they're classified. And it's normally just from like a search function. So like Terrapagos decks will be lumped together because it'll be doing a hot search for Terrapagos and Dustoir. And they'll
Yeah.
be lumped into that. And that's why sometimes you can have, like Alex is saying, like our Palkia deck, how would it be classified? Because there's Palkia in it and there's Terrapagos in it, but there's no Dustoir in it. So like, what would it fall under?
So it
Just
would
as a
have been
quick
it would have been
reference.
it would have been less than 40 then, right?
For
Yeah.
Palk Dusk, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Palk
Fair
Terrapagos.
enough.
Or Palk Terrapagos.
Yeah,
Wait,
and
were
then-
we under Palk Terrapagos? What were we under?
we were under Terrapagos Noctowl
Yeah, you would have
Yes.
been under.
apparently.
Yeah.
So which even more wild.
So it would have been sub 40 decks.
yeah, wouldn't
Okay.
have
Oh
been
yeah,
too many of those.
yeah.
And then moving on to day 2, then Terrapagos yes Desmar then shoots up to first place with 16%, 25 decks represented in day 2. Raging Bolt then just going down by 1, 15%, then Charizard EX 11%, Regidrago V-Star 10%, Lugia V-Star 9%, and then Dragapult EX at 6%. So a very, very, very good turnout for Terrapagos Desnoir. You can obviously
I think
see...
highlighted by a lot of quote unquote top players
Yes.
bringing that deck, right?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
So you've got a lot of very good players playing it who makes very little mistakes, probably knows the deck inside out. They're going to perform very well against quote unquote their expected meta as well, and that's basically what we saw. Maybe not everyone had faith in it pre-tournament, the sort of the masses, I guess, all 1,800 or so players that we had. So yeah, I think if you cherry pick those 25 players, you'd see a lot of big names carrying the flag for that deck.
Kind of comes
Yeah.
with the territory, right? Because of the flexibility of this combo deck and Noctowl in general, you have to be a competent player to pilot an archetype like this in the first place. So you're not going to have, beginners picking up a deck
Yeah.
like this, I don't think.
At the very least, this early on.
Yeah, especially this early on, right? And you have to have your finger on the pulse, been looking at the online results to even come up with a pretty good list of the deck, I think. So it was just generally very strong players gravitating to it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, the day 2 is a big story of evolution decks on the whole having a pretty poor time of things. And I think that is, again, just akin to, like, every deck that isn't a stage 2 deck, and even Dragapult itself, punishes stage 2 decks so hard right now with Dustoir, with Greninja, with Kyurem, with Dragapult Sprinkle, with Iron Hands. Like, everything apart from Bolt is out to get the stage 2s, so their overall conversion is really weak. I think it's so hard to justify playing a stage 2 deck right now, even though it just won the tournament, to be honest with you, because on the whole it is so rough for you every single round. I feel like your back is constantly against the wall as a stage 2.
You have to play a stage 2 that justifies the effort. And those two are only at the moment Charizard
Yeah.
and Pidgeot and Dragapult. And
Even
you can see...
Charizard has had some terrible performances the last,
Yeah.
3 or 4... so many tournaments, Charizard, for some reason there's a narrative of its being S tier this whole time, and its tournament results just do not add up to that.
I think it's-
always
I
as
think
a
it is in-
BDIF
Yeah.
having a target on its back, right?
I think it's inherently strong enough to carry the effort, but
Hence
yeah,
why- hence why there was still a good
I
number
agree. I
made
agree.
it.
Though there's enough threats out there now against evolution decks for me to go. Hang on a minute.
Plus, the evolutions are so
maybe
scared of
let's keep
bricking
this up
that they're
our
not even
sleeve
playing
for a
Manaphy
second.
now. They can't even
Yeah.
play, pretty
Or-
good cards,
Or,
because otherwise you'll brick and lose.
I mean, Jirachi was the first thing that people took out, right? And that has been out for a long time. And
Yeah, but
now it's
there's
now
no
it's
reason to play
out.
Jirachi now.
There's
Yeah.
reasons for that.
Yeah, I know, but
there's
I'm
very
just
good
saying.
reasons to play Manaphy, and you still don't in
Yeah.
a lot of these decks, because just having a third of X basic is better.
So the only deck that came off the graphic compared to day 1 was Gardevoir EX, which obviously we've been speaking about. Some great analysis around why evolution decks are not that great right now, and that only goes to show
I mean, it
being
only just
replaced
came
with
off though, right? I
Terrapagos.
think it
Yeah.
was still 5%.
Still
right?
5%. Guardi actually like retained its percentage, whereas
Oh,
like,
did
it was
it? Okay.
Charizard and Depult fell down.
Yeah, Terrapagos like just shot up so high that
Yes.
it's just taken a spot.
It just taken over. Yeah. So so Gardevoir then, if we look at the rest of day 2, Gardevoir then is first in that position with 5% Snorlax control, 4%. Then Iron Thorns comes out to play 4% with 7 decks represented. Then Miraidon keeps its 3%. Banette EX Gardevoir then at 3%. And then Palkia V-Star Dusknoir with 2%, with 3 decks represented. So going into day 2 then, Alex, were any of these decks kind of the creepy crawlies? You didn't want to see some of these decks? You know, were these the decks that people were playing to try and counter the meta, would you say?
Counter the meta? I mean, it's one of those things where the meta, again, is still quite wide. People are still trying to figure things out, right? That's the difficulty, and that's where some of these decks actually start to prey on that. You've still got the Snorlaxes where people maybe, you know, they're still figuring out their lists, maybe cutting a switch here or there, or there. Same with Iron Thorns. It was one of those things where I think we spoke about it last week. It just capitalizes on, it does what it does very well because it's got that ability on itself. It's got, you know, the cards to disrupt hands and remove energies and gust up certain Pokemon. That other decks are still trying to figure out how best to maybe deal with the rest of the meta, not really thinking about Iron Thorns, and that's where it pops up again. I mean, of those best of the rest decks that you mentioned, I personally probably wouldn't have wanted to have seen Snorlax because compared to Joe's list, I did cut a switch, or we did cut a switch with Luke. Thorns is a bit weird, but I think that's actually kind of beatable. Miraidon's always scary just because it's a lightning type, right? Always try and avoid those. Item Lock can do so many different unique, cool little plays with the Banette EX, and that's I think the Polish players who typically carry that deck tend to just be one of those you'd like to avoid anyway because you just don't really want to have to deal with Enveloping Shadow or Banette EX just locking you down and Alakazam coming out of nowhere and moving some damage counters and calling out.
Enveloping, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely targeting the stage 2s, which maybe have lost traction, and of course that's where maybe some of them have lost their progress. But then going into kind of the stories of the tournament, which is always going to be the decks that sneak in to day 2, which are usually the 1 or 2 ofs. Roaring Moon 3 decks, then Goldengo, of course, which I think was a lot of people's stories of the tournament, with 2 decks coming into day 2. Lost Zone Box, then with Shearing 2 as well, and then Chenpao, Dialga, Clorf Electrode, Ogerpon Noivern, and then Gouging Fire, all being welcomed.
We know
into
who that is.
Well, yeah, we know that one.
Do we all know? Do we all know?
Well, it
Yeah, we
gave,
do. Of course
lest we
we
forget, it gave Half Flame Mask Ogerpon its first Limitless page. The Ogerpons have all made it at last onto
And
Limitless.
that's all that matters.
That's history made this weekend.
That's all that matters. No, but seriously, congratulations to Luke. I know he was going to go into this tournament well prepared, and
I'm very happy he stuck with this deck. He's been doing so well locally with this deck. He got 3 cup wins in a second in 4 or 5 cups, which is just so
in
ruthless.
succession,
And he was like flirting with a few other archetypes that we were also like kind of interested in, which might be like still in the back burner. Just need a bit more time to figure out the right 60. But I think he can have no regrets that he took this deck and had also a stream game as well where he just squawked into absolute air, which was so sad in game 3. Plus then the opponent flips heads on catcher, which is just rough. But I think you got to see highlights of his deck, and he was saying time and time again that like this deck just surprises opponents with the attacking suite he has. Delphox can come out in a turn, which people don't expect. So can Wellspring. Half Flame Mask Ogerpon, because these threats can come out all in a turn. It's really like your opponent does not know what's happening, and they can all in themselves without knowing that they've lost because there's a combo waiting in the wings for them. So it's a very Luke deck because he's ironed this out, and there may be cards that you question, but trust me, they're in there for good reason, and the counts are all pretty close to exactly where they need to be. Like, you can question 1 or 2 exact cards, but Otherwise it's a really well built list, and I think the main appeal of this deck, as opposed to other aggro decks like a Miraidon or like a Bolt, is that your opponent just doesn't know what's happening. They do not know what's happening.
In similar vein to the Palkia deck,
exactly right.
We played. It just
exactly
no
right.
one knows, and then you're just having to try and work things out on the fly, and that's I mean,
there's
really going to see a gouging fire out of nowhere, and plays
and
literally for 260.
Yeah, and unironically, this deck's also really good into the controlling matchups, just because it plays 2 cart, 4 jet, and 3 boss. So like, you also are an aggro deck that can beat control. So it's certainly an underplayed archetype, but it's because Luke is really dedicated to this list.
If there's an expert of a deck, that's Luke.
Yeah.
Gouging fire.
The genuine issue is that you are still weak into Charizard, but he took that risk.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. And just looking at the deck, then I just showed it on the graphic there. I mean, there's so many little combinations you can do to make your opponent so awkward. I mean, gouging fire, 280 HP with the Monkey Dory kind of, I know you may have magma based in it or whatever.
Yeah.
But with Monkey Dory, you then unlock that problem as well. 280 HP with a Bravery Charm. That's a bit of a problem for a lot of decks in format, especially on a basic. So doing so much damage. So.
It can also protect you from Briar. You can just Bravery Charm Radiant Greninja, which is like one of the big plays, I think.
Yeah.
I really like Bravery Charm in even Raging Bolt now. I think it's, especially if Dragapult won and if Terrapagos Briar is like such a big deck, Charming Greninja is going to be like one of the best plays you can possibly make with that deck now.
Yeah, a lot of cool players, a lot of separate Pokemon across the Hearthstone, Flame. Ogerpon.
We haven't had to say it before. It's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
So also, lucky it's only just made it onto Limitless.
Surprise Delphox V's plays as well.
Hot.
All that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
So, if you say Hot Ogerpon, was that what you
Yeah, Hot Ogre.
Hot
Ancient
Ogre.
Hotbox is what I want to call his list.
But
don't know if we're
moving
allowed
on
to say
to...
Hotbox on the real stream, though.
Maybe not. There's a Hotbox over here. So yeah, moving on to top 8 then, as we got into it, of course, a lot of different decks being taken all the way into the top 8 of the regional. We got
Top
two
12,
Lugia,
bro.
two
Top
Lugia.
12.
Oh, top 12, sorry.
Asymmetric,
I should say top 12, shouldn't I now? We got a couple of Lugia. We've got 2 Dragapult Dusknoir, 2 Raging Bolt Ogerpon, 1 Regidrago, 1 Terrapagos Dusknoir, 1 Miraidon, 1 Iron Thorns, and of course, who can forget 1 Goldengo from 1 Yellow Van Kampen, who is public enemy number 1 for a lot of people. I mean, he keeps making finishes. I think somebody made a comment lately about how much prize money he's won just from Goldengo alone.
Is it?
Like that. It's 14K from Goldengo alone, which is safe to assume he's the best Goldengo player in the world right now.
I think it's it's actually pretty close. It's closer than I thought it would be, but he is the top. Yeah.
I mean, congratulations to Yellow again for such a fantastic finish with another deck that a lot of people would not dare call tier 1. Listen to a lot of his interviews over the weekend. He just puts his trust in the deck. He likes to prove people wrong, and he certainly does that. But then going into the top 12, of course, Terrapagos making a feature in there. But were there any surprises from any of you looking at this, looking at these lists, or even the decks that made it all the way?
I mean, from a deck perspective, before Joe actually looks at the list, I think they're all decks that we would consider to be, other than Goldengo, I guess is something that we didn't really touch on.
I've always liked it. I said it's always.
Right?
I said it was always going to make it. I don't know.
Is this your new Roaring Moon? Is it?
I always loved it.
I always thought it was going to win.
The rest are as not as we expected in terms of the numbers, but we both said Thorns could do something. Again, it was in that little spot that could do stuff. I guess Miraidon's always kind of been there or thereabouts if we're gonna get his head above all of those Charizards, which it kind of done in the end. And
Glenn's also played Miraidon for a while as well. I think he's pretty accomplished with it.
Yeah, exactly. And then Drago still made it into top 12. yeah, it was as expected. I don't know, Joe, if there's any lists that were kind of interesting for you from your perspective.
Well, I mean, Ryuki's list playing no Pidgeot
Yeah.
in Dragapult is clearly like big news, I think, in that
we
both
can go through.
Ryuki and Kato, who also got top 32 in the same 60, is kind of the new wave of Pult, possibly. Obviously, there was still a Pidgeot list that also made top 12, so you can't write off Pidgeot immediately, but possibly even just like a 1-1 Pidgeot line could be reasonable in this deck list, and just leaning heavier towards that Dust Noir package. And this actually stems from the Champions League in Japan, where Shintaro and a few other notable players piloted the deck without Pidgeot, and also did some in-depth articles about like the math fixing that Curse Blast does with Phantom Dive to essentially just board control many opponents, and you basically just want to prioritize candy on them rather than spending a candy on a Pidgeot a lot of the time. And yeah, it's powerful. It's definitely.
I guess it's a question for you, Joe and Benjamin. Just like, do people get so tunnel visioned on going for Pidgeot that maybe it detracts away from having to rare candy into one of your attackers and just getting out to play through an Arven because you attack with Sparking Crystal now?
It's one of those things where like
you just need one Ultra Ball, or you need Dragapult in hand, right?
It's really strange because the first. Sorry, Rab.
No. I mean, it takes effort to get set up in the first place, right? It's always one thing that's on your mind in the first 2, maybe 3 turns. You focus a lot on finding the resources to find your Pidgeot, unless your deck is favored for kind of a double setup, if you will. So Arven's obviously a great one because Forest Sealstone. You've got the Ball Search already in hand, so I wouldn't play. I mean, the complication has always been seen in the Zard decks, right? Because we've always thought, how on earth are you going to fit 3 stage 2s in your deck? And a lot of people have always said, just cut the Dust Noir, just keep it Pidgeot, Zard. Pidgeot for the late game because you need it for Ionos or Roxannes or whatever. Whereas this, I don't think Pidgeot is as effective in Dragapult as Dust Noir is, obviously. Obviously, they're favouring this over Pidgeot completely. But I think what inherently scares me about playing something like this is, of course, your first 2 turns. Your first 2 turns must be pretty scary.
Your first 2 turns are really scary with Pidgeot,
different?
Right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have Pidgeot live. So the way I've taken this build on Dragapult now is simply your earlier turns to get your first Dragapult EX is easier because you've got Sparking Crystal. So you can get your attacks off and you can kind of apply this really incredible pressure just by having this attacker, right? You still have Dracloaks to kind of fall back on, but your Pidgeots don't really push you to victory until, like you've already said, the mid to late game.
Yeah.
I
think this is what I was going to say about Pidgeot. You're spending resources turn 1. And now with Dust Noir in other decks, that's scary, right? You may be committing a bench space, which isn't a third Dreepy, which we have to do in a lot of situations now. So you're spending early resources. Then on turn 2, you're still spending resources, and the first quick search is always just a refund, right? Because you're spending cards to get the Pidgeot that could be the cards that got the other thing. So it's only really turn 3 where you're seeing the benefit of Pidgeot, and we're in 4-turn games. And sometimes people are capitalizing the fact that there's another easier to KO 2-prizer in play than a 320 Dragapult. So I do
kind of saw the stream matchup that Ethan played in, right, where he double KO'd.
He double gusted, yeah.
I think with the water from.
Just going back on it though, yes, your first couple of turns, in my perspective, they may be scary, but I think this has enough inherent support package, a strong enough support package behind it to have. To warrant that. You have the two Rotom, Dominion and Tatsugiri and Pheasantipede.
I think that's where we're at in the game. With this many great Insta players, it's kind of good. And at least you have a bit of crumb from Recon Directive here and there as well. I've played this and felt a bit naked at times, to be fair. So there has been games where I've not enjoyed the Pidgeot, but also like I hate 60 hit point Pokemon right now. Whenever I go second, they feel so unbelievably dead. So committing like a 2-2 line, certainly, compared to just having the extra Ball Search that you can have in the list, and just like better instant play cards, I definitely see the logic here. Like I'll probably still experiment with a 101 Pidgeot, because when you have those turns, it can still feel just incredible, and you are in much more control rather than like really hoping that Fez and your one recon gets you the like final combo you need, especially when you have specific one-offs that you want to hit with the list. When you're only playing like one boss, for example, when you're even on prizes and stuff like that, it feels a bit awkward. Obviously, you still have fish, but sometimes that's spent turn one. So yeah,
you're trying to weave in the Tatsugiri, right?
Yeah, you are trying to weave in Tatsugiri as well,
but the one-offs are most.
You don't actually thin the deck that much, though. That's the only issue.
No, but when you're talking about the one-offs that you're looking for the combos, like,
yeah, you do have things to hit with it.
I think Tatsugiri is actually great. I think it's a fantastic pivot.
Joe's been carrying that flag for a while, I'm pretty sure.
I do like Tatsu, but I'm actually quite cold on it in this deck because of how often Dragapult tanks in the active.
I just think it needs it though. If you're not playing Pidgeot.
Yeah, but here's my issue. Like Dragapult's active, it's tanked. Maybe you win just because your Dragapult's tanked for a turn, but like you're not able to just spend your one switch to go into attract customers because you need to save switch because Alakazam's on board and stuff like that, right? So. It feels awkward to me. It does feel awkward to me. But simply just having a Poffin retreats attract customers when I've gone second does feel good. And it's more proactive than Cleffa, which has always been something that I've disliked about Cleffa.
I was just about to come on to Cleffa because I thought if I was going to feel like a bit of a cowboy, I would have put Cleffa in this.
You can play Cleffa. It's just less proactive than Tatsu, right?
I feel, with this and with the double Rotom as well, you've just kind of gone down that route, right?
Just play both. Come on.
You can play one of each if you want to.
Luminion,
just play
Tatsu,
one
all of them.
One Rotom.
What do you guys think about 2 Rotom over 4th Nest?
I mean, I've been playing 2 Rotom.
Or even Hisuian. Like, there's no Hisuian in the list. Is that not just an easy flip-flop when Fez seems as or more important than Rotom to me? I don't get 2 Rotom. I'm saying it.
I think the only reason
2 Rotom did well in a lot of lists this weekend, and I don't get it.
The only reason I get 2 Rotom is that you want it in hand and you want to save search.
Yeah, but it's a 4th Nest Ball, bro.
Stuff.
You could just play a 4th Nest Ball, and then it's everything throughout the entire game, and not just exactly opening hand simulator. I know turn 1 is the most important turn of the game, but also you don't want to lead a Rotom into a number of matchups. You would rather it be a Nest Ball and lead a one-prizer.
Yeah.
The logic in wanting to start it just means that's why we played 4 Fan Rotom, right? But it's 4 and
completely
heavily
different.
increasing the percentages.
Yes.
The only reason that I was playing 2 Rotom in Lax was because I wanted to being my starting.
No, it's because it was because Hisuian it was because prizing it killed you, right?
Yeah, and prizing it obviously killed me, but prizing it obviously kills it in this as well.
Yes, but I don't think it kills you. Because you still have other things that you can do.
I mean, the only things you can do is Tatsugiri, right? Say you're going turn. Yeah. Say you're going turn. It's your first turn going second, and you prize your 1 Rotom. What are you? What?
Yeah, I mean it's bad, but it's not like in Snorlax you need Rotom the entire game. This you need it for a turn. So I'm losing 3 cards because I prize it that 10%.
But I think that's.
But I could also play Heavy Ball in the list instead of second Rotom, and then as long as I've gone second and drawn Arven, it's fine.
But that's what goes back to my argument around the first turns. If I'm going first, turn 1, and I have no access to Arven, and I Nest Ball, and I have no Rotom.
Yeah, it's exactly that, right?
It's pretty horrific.
I don't think it's horrific.
I do. I don't know. It's because
it's bad, but it's also 10%, right?
I don't attack, do I? So I mean, to me, it just says.
Yeah, I mean that's where it's very different here. I think from a Lax perspective.
Yeah.
Lax, you're dead. I agree that you're dead with Lax, but with this, you're not dead.
Don't go.
I don't know. Maybe those 3 cards are just too vital to say no to, and maybe you just have to win every game you go first, which is also something I feel like a lot of decks are so incredibly good going first now that you have to not lose going first.
And you have to be
format,
kind
of.
You have to.
You make it sound like we've gone back to Lorcana.
We are playing Lorcana again because you can search your deck for 6 cards turn 2 now.
The first thing I said after coming back to Lorcana was, I'm really missing Nest Ball. I just want a Nest Ball for Leon.
Where is it?
Let me get some Mons out.
Yeah, because I kept coming with Mons. I had 8 Mons down and they be prepared and they all just left.
And then they're gone.
They're gone. And I was so upset. I went wide again.
I'm going wide again.
Let's go on to the other finalist list then. Of course, Rahul already on a stormer right now with Lugia yet again making the final Unfortunately, succumbing to the Dragapult, of course, as we all watched. But donning the Lugia deck yet again, and it's admirable that he's not really making any changes to the list, if any, right?
Well, he's
just
not, right?
Yeah, just
No
on
changes.
first look, he hasn't made any changes whatsoever.
No,
changes.
he has made no changes since.
Yeah. So pretty good going.
Would you play a 60?
No.
I still feel like it looks wild.
Can't believe it.
No, I wouldn't.
God bless him.
It obviously works for him, obviously. I remember listening back to his Worlds tournament report.
or something.
His tournament report. He has such a specific mindset with this deck in terms of what. Obviously, he has a matchup going for a plan for each matchup, but I think it's one of those decks where nobody else will touch, and it's just him. He's the only one that really understands.
There's been one
what's
other player
going
that's
on
placed
this.
with his exact 60. Only Tony Quanch has been brave enough to pilot this deck.
I think it's a very brave
bless you,
play,
Tony.
and it's one of those lists that has to be well tested, because we all know how inherently inconsistent Lugia can be, and I think this deck just makes that problem worse in my perspective. But obviously, it works for him. I don't know if you two have any other opinions.
I mean, the only thing that's always queasy for me is 1/1 Cincino, when it feels like it's an incredibly important attacker. But he has workarounds, right? He's got weakness coverage with Raikou, and he has Weird that can still one-bung stuff. So, it's slightly better if you prize or research this away than it would be in a 2/2, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And he's not compromised any ball search, right? Which is the good thing.
This is where I think with his deck, the build that he had going into Worlds was very good, because obviously with the Lugia and upticks and so on, and then the Raikou, big fan of that. Maybe into Baltimore as well, same sort of meta, very little changes. I would have thought going into something like Dortmund, he would have needed another big attacker in another Chinchino or someone. Obviously, he does have that weird ear to kind of help compensate in some way, shape, or form. Still has hands and Ursalunas to kind of swing into. But, I mean, I don't actually know what his run was like in Dortmund. I probably could check.
I know he was undefeated. I'm pretty sure he was undefeated day 1. I don't know what he lost to day 2.
If I'm looking at this correctly, he lost to Yella with good and good.
The gap, the one thing you can't deal with.
That makes sense with only 1/1 Chinchino. That does make sense.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you can't really hit 260 any other way, right?
Weirder.
Oh,
yeah,
weird.
it's a two-prizer.
That's
Yeah.
a two-prizer.
260 is a grief number for him, I suppose. But you have a potential to amp for 3 in that matchup as well into Palkia. I don't know. Lugia is still just a toolbox of attack, so you can find weird things to do.
You could.
And you can turn all of these into one prizes, right? So
And I think
we've always kind of said if it sets up its quote unquote BDIF in its own right?
Yeah. I think that's the
sort of
thing.
Navigate.
That's the thing with me looking at this list. I think in my mindset it's not simple, and plus I have Horror Story Lugia, so it's just kind of
Lugia was by far my easiest round day 1 because they just
too much for me.
bricked. They didn't play the game in either game. It was so embarrassing. But to be fair, my opponent was like, "It's Lugia. I knew what I was in for." Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, sign the slip.
My opponent literally read the win 4 times in our set. That was it.
You forgot to sign.
Come back.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, fair play to Rahul. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't go on crazy runs like that if you don't know your deck inside out and
Yeah.
into the matchups that you.
I'm pretty sure Lugia
kind of
V-Star
wanted
is just
to.
the new Greninja break of the new era,
Oh,
essentially.
such a good analogy.
It's like, I don't want it to be me, but someone's brave enough.
Someone's gonna get top 8.
Someone's going to somehow cut 3 tournaments in a row with this pile.
Congratulations again to Rahul for the great finish. Hoping his run continues. But of course, following on from Dortmund, of course, it wasn't the only regional of the weekend. We also had Joinville over in Brazil. Now, this was a lot more of a varied, I would say, tournament in terms of decks being played. Now, I've always been a fan of this deck. I think I put it on my number 1 in the tier list. It's Cloth Electrode. Making a surprise appearance in top 4, of course, Alejandro Luciano Elio. I hope I pronounced that right. But of course, going through the other top 8 decks, we have Antonio Yardim with Raging Bolt Ogapon. Then we have Azard Pidgeot in 7th. 6th place, Snorlax Stool. 5th, Iron Thorns. 4th place, Terrapagos Dustoir. 3rd, of course, again, Call of Electrode. 2nd finalist, Terrapagos Dustoir. And then, of course, the winner being Lugia.
It's the same 60 as well for the Terrapagos Dustoirs, by the way. Giovanni and Joao play the exact same 60.
It's all the same 60. Okay, fair enough.
Yep. I was going to say, I think from what I quickly looked at, wasn't it a top 9 in Jordan?
Was it? Okay.
Nicolas Galas made it.
Yeah, that's right.
27
and
third
well.
one.
In ninth place would be Terrapagos Dustoir again. So a lot more of a much better showing compared to Dortmund, and of course them 3 playing the same 60 as well.
No, it was just 2nd and 4th.
It was just 2nd and 4th. Okay, so let's have a look at the 2nd place deck then. I don't know if you guys have checked out this list at all, but to me, it's pretty reminiscent of the list that was played in Dortmund. Maybe 1 or 2 changes here or there. Vitality Band.
The big difference is Tord played Boof, right? Vitality Band is a big mirror tech as well. You're right, and we could see that going forward. So Terrapagos can hit 230.
Yeah.
And I think what the other big takeaways, Lotto as a tech rather than playing Tenacity because it's like quite a slow choice, and this is like your bailout option if you happen to prize Pidgey, I suppose, and you can still dual seek to dig for Turbo.
Yeah, I think Tord had a Turoza, right, as well.
Tord did play Churro Palpad,
Churro,
which I actually do really enjoy, but this list does play a switch, I suppose. Sometimes we see Jet Energy as well. I think Galas played 1 Jet in the list, which is like somewhat popular in the online scene.
I really do like the
slightly different counts as well. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Just generally, I was just going to say like Terrapagos 4-3, 4-4 Noctowls, 3-3 Noctowls. I think, I actually spoke to Tord very briefly in Dortmund, and he was just like, if I get into Fan Rotom, I win. This is great. Yep. And I was like, how about we play 4? And he's like, you play 4? I was like, yeah. God damn.
This list has enough single prizes to not need to play 4.
Yeah, obviously.
But I do really implore adding a 4th Buddy Poffin. I think Poffin is the thing that completely unlocks this deck, because that's how you get access to Duskull, because you can just go Fan Dusk, and then you're threatening the pop whilst also getting Hoot Pidge or whatever else, for
I think
turn.
I agree. I think if I'm not playing 4 Rotom, I'm playing 4 Poffin instead.
Poffin is the thing that unlocks this deck. It is probably the first 4 of on the 60 behind the Owls
You just
themselves.
spoke about going wide, Benjamin, so that's your way of going wide every turn.
It is certainly going wide, Mr. Worldwide.
Also,
sure.
Night Stretcher is so busted, but I'm starting to think whether or not you should play 1 Rod just so you can get multiple. Because the first time an Area 0 is gone, you always get rid of 2 Noctowls, right? Because they've been used. So having 1 Rod in the deck to reload like lots of them for when you get random hand disrupted, I think could be interesting. Something I haven't played with yet, because Night Stretcher, the immediacy of it is so important.
Did you play Night Stretcher in your calculus?
No, and I think not. So I had it in my list for a long time, and I changed it for Rod. But all the successful Terrapagoses play Night Stretcher just for the immediate return of Noctowl, and I think it's something I should definitely try in Palkia, just because Noctowl every turn is insane.
If you had 4-4 Noctowl,
I would do that first.
Would it then be better with the Rod?
Probably still better.
So if you had 3-3 Noctowl, would it be? Okay.
I think
3-3 Noctowl.
3-3 Noctowl, 1 Stretcher, 1 Rod is one thing, and it would be an extra space for me to play 4-4 and just Rod. Yeah.
I think Rod's just so much better with Dustoir. Anyway, personally.
Rod is better with Dustoir.
I think Rod is a lot better with Pidgeot as well. I'm a big fan of Rod and Palpad with Pidgeot. I'm a big fan of those.
Palpad, definitely good with Pidgeot, I think all the high placing lists played Pidgeot. Surprising that a lot of them landed on 1-1.
No Palpad in the DortVille list.
No Palpad in this list.
Palpad, it's really weird, right? Because you do condense the game down a lot. That Palpad's not a super strong card, but I think Tord had it as like a respect stuff kind of thing. I know Tord's always someone that likes to have the resources to beat the controlling matchups because it's Europe, and if you go far, you'll face Alessandro in round 12. So, he's always had that little bit of extra juice in his deck, and that's something that Tord's seemed to have done over the last couple of years. So, I can see Palpad being dropped from a number of the standard 60s, but it's It's like, and also I really enjoyed. I was playing this deck yesterday, just for a video, and Churro was absolutely cracked. Whenever I led Hoot Hoots, I would actually use my supporter search for Churro just so I could dual seek again next turn. I could like replay the Hoot, and I was like, this is crazy. This is any 2 cards I want next turn.
Well, this is like super scoop up into Inteleon, right? It's
exactly. It's reloading an
Inteleon,
Inteleon.
right?
It's so good.
I think the only thing inherently weak, I would say, or has potential disadvantages with this Dortmund list without Palpad is just my experience in playing Terrapagos. You have to be super wary of your gusting options going into the game. Playing only 2 guaranteed gusting prime catcher boss, and then also having the counter catcher. It's
thing is, you force counter catcher to be live, right?
It's super tricky to take advantage.
No, I honestly haven't felt that at all. You force counter catcher to be live, right, with Curse Blast, so it is 3 guaranteed gust basically every game.
Yeah.
So
realistically, I haven't
maneuver
palpated
your
much
prizes just
deck.
with Dustmars.
I think it's just.
It like
I think it's just you have to be wary about taking early prizes in the game.
Yeah, I mean that's the intricacy of this deck, just generally, right?
Playing around it. It's playing around it.
I do think this list is quite high on supporters generally low. I like looking at things like Grant 60 where it's just like all one-off supporters and just an options kind of thing. I think we're going to see...
the Joinville list or the
Grant
list?
The Joinville list is quite high on supporters.
Right, okay.
For how few turns you actually play with the deck. So I feel like we could go lower with these counts. I think you can easily cut an Iono from the 60 just to... shimmy to Poffin, for example. I also love 4 Terrapagos, like it's the activator for the entire deck. I would just play 4. But yeah, it does seem like a really good 60. Like Lotto's a card that I still cringe at, but I get it. But they got so much so right so early in this format that this is going to be a blueprint now for the next, like, how many tournaments do we have in this format? Like 5 across the globe.
A lot.
So, yeah.
I'm sighing, but I am excited. But... just play a 5th double turbo, you're fine.
Well, dude, Manly played 3. He played 3 DTU.
You only
zero energy Blood Moon is your final attacker if need be.
You only need to really attack twice if you can get off your dust clops.
If you're doing it right, attack twice, yeah.
That shouldn't be allowed.
But yeah, interesting results over in Dortmund.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
obviously the Cloth is the anomaly there, but...
There was in 12th place, there was a
call it an anomaly?
Well.
Certainly not
look
an
at
anomaly.
Look at his round little head, Electrode. Of course it's an anomaly.
He's a genius.
It's playing the Petulant for Dong. It's brilliant. It's genius, if anything.
Genius.
Alex, don't know if you looked at the 12th place Palkia Noctowl just out of interest, but looks way greedier than ours, just saying.
I think this is the one I've seen before, right?
2-2 Noctowl.
Yeah.
Why am I crying? Yeah.
But he plays Hisuian, Joe. It's fine.
Hello?
Yeah, I played Hisuian.
This is a turn 3 combo deck rather than turn 2.
Very good.
It's just funny that... Yeah. This is the highest placing. This is the blueprint for people, right? Because it's the highest placing Palk Noctowl.
Good, I guess. Means I can continue playing my one, right?
Yeah.
I think that'll be all we'll have for Pokemon updates. Dave, did you check the score?
Yeah, we ended a 3-3. I mini fist pumped under the table.
Sir Harry Maguire scored the last.
Harry Maguire saved Eric Ten Hag's job.
I'm obsessed with Man United, but my lord,
You are starting to merge into Mark Goldbridge, aren't you?
I can't
Look
stand them.
Look at your face.
But
you
I'm
are
obsessed
excited.
with them. It's
Do you
a
want to
real
talk
problem.
about how your team did the other night, Rab? Or
Absolutely not. No, we got thrashed. I was really upset about it. I was gutted about it. I mean, Brendan Rodgers is a tactical genius most of the time, but when it gets to European nights, it's just like, this is the 3rd time we've lost by more than seven or more goals with Brendan Rodgers at the helm in Europe. As PSG, Barcelona, and now Dortmund. And
I don't think you've ever said a nice thing about the guy.
No, I haven't. That was a joke.
No, he doesn't. Not
That joke doesn't.
But
count
I
for
just wish
Benjamin.
we'd have a go. I just wish we'd have a proper
I wish
go.
we'd have a go.
I wish we'd we played like.
You had a go, but then it's suddenly 3-0, and then
we set out like it was we were like Real Madrid, and it's like no, that's not going to work. Play like 5 at the back or something, and just boot it up to Kyogo. That's my 2 cents. But he didn't.
United had 29 shots, by the way.
That's a lie.
Yeah,
so good.
So good.
That's a lie.
Game.
But then I know Robin Schultz is a Dortmund fan, isn't he?
He is indeed.
So
Yeah.
if
Was he in the yellow wall on Friday?
If he's listening, and I'm sure he is, I hope you enjoy that win. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you enjoy this.
Now clip that and send it to him.
Yeah.
You think your team's so good?
He's so good with his 7 goals.
Look, United didn't lose. We're on a roll now. Aston Villa on the weekend.
They still lost since the last time we spoke.
I've activated my wild card, and now I'm just.
Have you? You gone big?
I'm tinkering.
I absolutely failed my wild card.
I've currently got a team that has jammed in Saka, Palmer, Haaland, and maybe still Salah. I don't even know anymore.
That's mental.
Have you got no one in defence?
4.0 defence across the back.
He's
fine.
He's
I'm
hacked
all
the
in.
game. He's hacked the game. Nah,
Genius.
my wild card completely blanked. I think my only player that came back was Semenyo and Mbuemo.
Have you dropped off the top now?
Yeah, I have
I hate to see
Yeah.
it.
dropped off.
Lewis Roach. He did very well last season in our league.
He did. He's very good
for a
at
long
fantasy league
time.
from what it looks like.
I'm
So,
I'm on the up. I'm in 17th position.
I'm
So come on.
when are you gonna get Haaland?
I have him now.
Yeah. All right, Darth Vader over here. Look.
This was all. my plan from the offset was a week 7 Haaland, and for some reason he's only blanked 1 game week, and everyone else is like, "Oh, you're such an idiot!" But he's absolutely high rolled these first 6 weeks. I'm not hearing he's busted obviously, but he's still high rolled.
I mean, he's obviously.
I had to downgrade Salah to bring in Palmer.
I don't mind.
I've lost so much money with all my from how bad my start's been that I only have Haaland. I don't have Salah either. My team is atrocious, bro. But I'm still
my defense is still pretty good.
I'm holding on to my wildcard for like 2 more weeks until I can get rid of Arsenal. That's where I think this is my new plan to gain an advantage. That everyone's wildcarded early enough that they're all on Arsenal, and then I have to transfer them all out. And that's when I'm going to play my wildcard and be ahead of the curve again. That's the big brain.
I'm telling you, my team looks sexy right now.
I tell you who's cheap. Levi Colwill, 4.5 million. Chelsea always concede, but I think
that's your issue.
Yeah, he's not going to score, is he?
That's a good show.
My defense right now.
I got Rico Lewis.
Listen to the team, okay? Pedro Porro, Guardiola, Gabriel at the back. Strong 3-man defense.
That's big.
Palmer, McNeil, Luis Diaz, Saka.
McNeil.
In midfield. Hey, Messi.
I don't like Luis Diaz.
Oh,
I also don't
you
like
don't
Diaz.
like Luis Diaz? Anyway,
No.
and then my up front is Haaland, Calvert-Lewin, and Wood.
Luis Diaz won't start this week. He started Champions League.
You've got McNeil and Calvert-Lewin. You're having to watch every Everton game. That's
Have you seen their fixtures?
To be fair,
to be fair, I've got Calvert-Lewin, but he blanked last year.
but I still wouldn't trust Calvert-Lewin to score in any of those games.
But
I think he'll score in.
He's on pens.
I think at best he'll score in 3 of those 5 at best.
It's
That's good for his price, but
he's on pens
Exactly.
though. That's the difference.
I can see him scoring in one of those 5.
Look at the other. Think of the other
Calvert-Lewin.
players. Just this is it.
I didn't hear Mbuemo in that lineup.
Yeah, he's got him.
No, so I
you don't have
currently got Mbuemo. I currently haven't got Mbuemo. Obviously, it's someone I'd like, but I reckon Messi's going to be the differential. It's fine.
Can't back him with a straight face. It's insane.
Have you not seen the guy? Did you not see his minimal backlift, top corner, left foot pinger?
To be
Once in
fair,
a lifetime.
To be fair, he was quite good.
The boy's a good footballer.
I'm going to tell
He has created the most chances in the Premier League this season so far.
No, he hasn't. That's James McFadden. James Maddison.
I don't think it is. I think if you double check, it's McMessi.
I put Maddison.
That's insane.
I've got Maddison. My midfield, I think, is Saka, Semenyo, and Mbuemo, Maddison. Pretty happy with
Yeah,
that.
Madison is one injury away from a terrible season.
He is. That's the problem. So I've got to keep rolling my transfers until he gets injured. So
My midfield is
inevitably.
atrocious. I'm actually embarrassed to read it out. Rogers, Eze, and Burmo, Diogo Jota.
Oh, Eze. Oh.
So yeah, everyone's dropped Eze now, right? But it doesn't matter. You've got Mbuemo. It's
I
fine.
think people dropped Eze about 5 weeks ago.
He's been so unlucky.
He
had a non-offside offside. He's hit the bar like 3 times, and he
Yeah,
randomly
it's been-
gave a penalty away to Mateta.
Joe, do you know what hitting the bar means? It's an off-target shot.
Off target, terrible.
So I don't know if
Shame.
that's unlucky.
It was the best off-target shot I've ever seen in my life. But I'm big up top. I've got Haaland, Havertz, Watkins. That's absolute business.
That's fine.
right
That's
there.
actually pretty
fine.
good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
business.
Not Solanke. You're not trusting.
I had him
Solanke?
week
Bet-
1.
bet-
He got injured.
I like how
and
Rabs is reeling off
my
names
entire
from every YouTube
plan.
video that he's
Yeah.
watched in the past.
I'm
day
just
and a half.
watching. I'm just watching Let's Talk FPL. Of you.
My 7-week plan was all like very strict on transfers, and Solanke got injured week 1. So my entire pre-plan was out the window, and
Yeah,
I'm so
that's
mad
fair enough.
because on that week plan I had Watkins the game week he scored 2, and I didn't have him in real life, and for Cole Palmer I would have had him for his 4 as well. So
Yeah,
annoyed.
That's annoying.
Solanke's actually ruined my whole year.
That's annoying.
Poor
What are you guys up to this weekend then?
I'm
No
watching
Pope
Super
for me.
Sunday. I've got
Yeah,
a mate
so-
coming around for that, so that should be fun.
Very good.
Play some football on Saturday, golf on a Sunday, I think.
Nice.
You're playing football.
Get
Yeah,
the
that's
last of
cool.
the summer. Well, we're out of summer, aren't we? Really.
Get
Good.
dust off my old
Last of the
boots.
sun before it's just pure darkness for 4 months.
That's fair
Yeah,
enough.
we the summertime leaves us at the end of this month. So
It does, yeah.
is it end of this
Yeah.
month? It's the last
No,
weekend,
it's
right?
it's gone, right? I think
Yeah,
we're
As
in
in, like,
we're in
the
autumn now,
clock's
aren't we?
changing.
we're in autumn.
Oh yeah. The clocks haven't changed yet.
No, yeah.
Benjamin, any
Rab, what you
more
up to?
time you're
No.
leaving your unborn
Baby
child?
popping out, or
Absolutely nothing. I was going to play a challenge on Sunday, but then I was reminded that I've got to go Sunday lunch with Harriet's mates on Sunday, so I was pretty upset about that.
Give
Toby
Harriet some-
Carvery?
Is it pineapple and hot sauce that would maybe speed it along?
Yeah. What?
Get it out quicker.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, no. We haven't tried that method yet. I'll let her know.
you'll get there. You'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Well, she's been up with heartburn all night, so I just keep waking up and thinking it's like 6 a.m. and it's not.
Do you feel it as
Too.
well when she suffers? You're like,
Vicariously.
Yeah, I get phantom pregnancy really bad. And she looks after me when I got phantom pregnancy then.
It's just gas.
It's just, I'm just constipated.
right.
Yeah.
That's enough. Okay.
That's enough. That's
We'll
enough.
Good.
end on gas.
Right, yeah, well, fair
Cheers,
enough.
everyone.
Yeah, I'll speak to you guys next week. I hope you all enjoyed listening. Stay tuned for more stuff, I guess.
It's getting longer and longer.
Yeah, I know. All right, bye.
Bye.